Welcome, everybody. We're going to get started. If people come in, they can wander in quietly, I hope. Thank you for coming this evening. I know it's always hard to get out in the evenings in our busy lives. So I want to thank Chalcedon Presbyterian for giving me the opportunity to do this series of seminars, which I'm going to be doing. And there is a list of all the different seminars I'll be doing. I'll be doing one a month until I die, or whatever comes first. So thank you for Chalcedon, the elders, and Aubrey is one of our deacons, and thank him for taping this for us. My name is Kay Ness. I'm a neurodevelopmentalist with ICANN. Overall neurological organization, and then reading and academic function. What we find, is there any physicists in here? No physicists. I started life as a chemical engineer in my career. And are you a chemical engineer? Mechanical? Good girl. Yes, God has a sense of humor. But I always found that I was interested and fascinated with brains. Why are some people smart and some people not smart? Why can some people do things and some people not do things? And even when I was studying engineering, I was taking Montessori courses to learn about early learning because I was fascinated with that area. And then when I had a child, I took him on as a great engineering project. I was 33 when he was born, so I was very old, late bloomer. And I didn't know anything about babies. I was terrified. I wasn't worried about having him. I was worried about what did I do when I get him. So it was just the most incredible thing that's ever happened in my life. When he was born, I was reading and studying about brain growth and development and nutrition and all these areas, wanting to be the perfect mother. And I ran across a little book called How to Teach Your Baby to Read by Glenn Goman. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that book, which was, I see God's hand and providence in my life so strongly now. I was not a Christian at that time. And so I said, this is really cool. I'm going to call them and see if I can come up and look around and see what they're doing because they're up in Philadelphia. Well, it turned out they had classes, so I went to Philadelphia. And I took the classes on essentially the Well Baby class, how to accelerate development in the Well Baby. And then I took their classes in working with brain injured children, which is what they do, and how to accelerate and bypass areas of brain injury. And my son was 12 months old at the time. And I thought, this is so cool. You can teach babies to read. I thought, what a fascinating thing. Every baby has the ability to learn to read. I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever heard. So I came back, charged, and started talking to people, and you would have thought I was telling people to burn their child to Moloch or something, and they were teaching babies to read. They had this vision of pushing children and doing all these horrible things to it. But the fact is that every single child can learn to read. It doesn't have to be any special gifts or whatever. A child is a newborn baby, is a linguistic genius. By the age of 12 months to 24 months, they acquire a foreign language, which is their native tongue. They acquire it easily. They don't have to have any talking readiness classes. They don't have to do any of it. They learn to read by putting them in an environment in which they can learn in a natural way. Are you familiar with when I learned how to teach babies to read, which you're getting the advantage of this because it cost me several $1,000s to gain this information, and it's been the last 18 years of my life, almost 19 years of my life. So $10 is a real bargain. Anyway, I was really amazed that people weren't excited about this information. And, you go around telling people the good news of Jesus, and they aren't excited about that either. So they just have to be ready to hear it. So anyway, I'm going to go through and show you the things that I learned. Shinichi Suzuki, are you familiar with Suzuki at all? That the Japanese teacher, essentially. He was a brilliant man, wonderful, gentle, wonderful man. Highly recommend you read his books. He discovered that he had a real eureka experience one day. He went, every child learns to speak their native language with a perfect accent, perfect syntax. And it's something, genius is when everybody looks at the same thing and somebody really sees something in it. Suzuki saw that the act of learning a language in a natural way showed the true genius and the abilities of the very young child. The very young child is designed by God to absorb information from the environment. And they absorb it in a very natural way very easily. They aren't wise about it, but they are sponges. And also I need to make some comments about levels of intelligence. The brain is 3% of the mass of the brain, of the adult. 3% is the actual neurons, the brain cells. 97% of the mass of the brain is the interconnections, okay, between the brain cells. One brain cell might hook up to 100,000 or a million other brain cells. All of those interconnections are formed by stimulation from the natural environment. So we're talking about what is a child born with, what is his capability. He's capable, well, we can affect 97% of his function. The 3% I'm not too worried about. If I can affect 97% of the function of the child, in other words, 97% of his IQ, whatever that is determined by what kind of environment, what kind of stimulation, what kind of learning opportunities that child gets. Even if there's injury or problems along the way, we can still, there's a lot of adaptability in the system. In my work, I base my work on two major principles. Number one is the hierarchical development of the brain. The brain develops in a very orderly, stepwise fashion. And I can look at those steps from newborn until what we call neurological organization and find exactly what's going right and what's going wrong at each level. And there's where I want to put my stimulation to help accelerate that area. The other concept, basic concept that I work on is neuroplasticity. Is that the brain, the whole central nervous system, is extremely plastic and changeable. There's nothing fixed about it. And that's not even controversial. Neuroplasticity is all the rage. Brain plasticity, you hear about this. That even Christopher Reeves, who severed his spinal column, can feel his body now. And I would have said that was impossible. But due to some stimulation and the fact that they're patterning him 3 hours a week, after 5 years of feeling nothing, he's actually feeling some tactile input, which is amazing. If he had 3 hours a day, just think how much faster he would progress. So anyway, with hierarchical development and neuroplasticity, we can help create an environment that accelerates the development of a child in a very natural way. And we can also look at how a child is deprived. So it doesn't have to be something you force on the child. It's something that we just, with wisdom that God has given us, we can look at what is the true nature of the human brain, what is the true nature of the child and how they learn, and what we can provide for them. So what am I supposed to talk about next? So that's kind of, working with my own son is kind of how I got here, is taking the classes at the institutes and learning to teach him to read. He was a fully automatized reader at the age of 24 months. Is that between 12 months and 20 months, he saw about 1,000 sight words. He had 1 week of sandpaper letters in the Montessori school. That's all the phonics he got. And then he learned to read sound out words and become a good guesser, and it just took off from there. He was tested at 3.5, he was reading at third grade level, and he was reading at college level at 7. And he also got 790 on the SAT verbal. I questioned the 10 points, but anyway. Let him who boasts in the Lord, because it's not my doing, it's not his doing, it's a gift from God, and it's just, I want everybody to do this. My agenda, I have an agenda here. My agenda is I want really smart, capable Christian children going into the future. And we are not doing what we need to do to help our kids be as smart as they can be. If you look at historically where we used to function and how we function today, we're all learning disabled. Go back and read, John Owen's sermons. Go back and read, the stuff that was written in the 1600s, the 1700s. Read the Puritan sermons. Is that you have to read one sentence, goes on, it has all these clauses, goes on for half a page. We can't process that today. So we can get back to historical levels, and with what we know, we can even function at higher levels. And I want every parent to teach their children to read. I'm not interested in schools waiting to send the kids to school. I want every parent to teach their babies to read. So that is my agenda. And I will tell you, the reason I'm so insistent that, and I'm really disappointed there's no more people here interested in teaching babies to read, but that's the history. I've looked at this for 19 years on this. First of all, it's easy. Children are linguistic geniuses. They can learn to read just as easily as they learn to speak. The brain doesn't care whether the language is visual or auditory. The baby learns language, and you can teach them both. For instance, a child can learn a second language very easily if it's younger, under the age of 5, than we can. All right, there's something different about that brain. Right? So it doesn't matter whether it's visual language or auditory language. He learns to read in the Suzuki called the mother tongue method, how to create an environment so he absorbs visual language as well as auditory language. So that's one reason you teach your baby to read, because it's easy. They're linguistic geniuses. That's what they're designed to do by God at that age. All right. So the other reason you teach your baby to read is that it'll affect his level of function the rest of his life. He'll essentially be smarter than other people the rest of his life. When you increase brain function in one area, it affects the whole system. So if you look at most children don't learn to read until they're 6, 7, right? So what do they do for those first 5 years? Do you know the time of fastest brain growth is when? First 3 years of life. So we treat them like little idiots, put them in cute little outfits and put them in a box and play with them and treat them like toys, when the fact is we're wasting all that wonderful potential the child has. My colleagues and I, one of my colleagues taught her daughter to read by the age of 2 also. So I kind of watched these 2 kids because they really fascinate me, as the way they can read is different than how I read. I'm a good reader, but he can read better than I ever thought of reading. He can just strip words off a page just so fast. When we were driving, he was reading Gone with the Wind at the time. He would take 9 seconds to read the 2 pages and turn to the next one.